All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Mid-Level Show. I am your host, Ben Rogers, and today I'm with two very special mid-levels. I'm with Fran Wilson in the Johnson City office and Amber Butler in the Kingsport office. Guys, thank you for being here. We have a few of us out today, so it's going to be a very small conversation between us three and mainly you two, since you guys have all the brains in this, what would we call this, a triage, in this trio. So for the listeners out there who don't know what this show is, it's my favorite show, and I think it's Amber's favorite show. And what we do is we go over the most recent Doctor's Note and Dictations podcast episode by Dr. Rogers, and we do a deep dive, and we try to give other perspectives, and we try to dive a little deeper where we feel like he didn't, and we give just other sides of the conversation and hopefully bring you guys a lot of value out there. So if you are watching on YouTube, hello, and if you're listening on the podcast, hello. Thank you guys for being here. Fran, this week's Dictations was on wheat, and before we started recording, you have a ton of props for the YouTubers out there. Fran has some props that were mentioned.
Wheat Belly.
Why don't you actually, let's start with Wheat Belly. You know, are you a fan of the book? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on the books that were mentioned in this week's Doctor's Note?
Yeah, I read this book probably, 5 years ago. And I remember, like, right after you read the book, you're like, oh my gosh, wheat is poison. And so I definitely eliminated wheat from my diet. Felt great not eating wheat. I have a friend who has celiac disease, and she was pretty much non-functional until they properly diagnosed her at the Mayo Clinic. And when they found out that she had celiac and she removed wheat, she went from not being able to drive a car or write a sentence anymore, and she is back functioning as a member of society. So I saw it was kind of part of all that, like seeing what she went through and being like, wow, like wheat can really, really cause havoc in some individuals.
Now, what's your take on, celiac versus, gluten sensitivities? Because that was something that was mentioned in this note, and you mentioned knowing somebody with celiac, which is, in my ignorance, seems to be more extreme than a gluten problem.
Oh, definitely more extreme. I mean, wheat will kill them.
Okay.
If they continue to have it. They don't absorb nutrients, and they have all kinds of problems.
Is that the big
when they have celiac disease?
Is that the big thing? Is that they just aren't absorbing nutrients, so they're getting nothing? And wheat is just causing havoc inside of them. Is that what's going on?
I don't know that I know all the details of celiac disease. I just know that if they don't remove wheat and gluten from their diet, they are very, very sick.
And that's wild. As if you do remove it, how you can feel, somewhat normal. And Amber, I want you to jump in here, just talking about wheat and this doctor's note. Were you aware of some of the issues with wheat and in your own diet?
Well, in my own diet, I'm very blessed. I don't have much issues with gluten or really any at all. But my husband, who has Crohn's disease, now Crohn's does not mean automatically that you can't tolerate gluten, but it is a very common thing. If you do have Crohn's, that gluten isn't your friend. And there was a period before Scott was diagnosed where we were just desperate. I mean, my husband was 6'3", he was down to 165 pounds. So he was very thin, and just like Fran was saying, not absorbing nutrients. And we tried to it's called the FODMAP diet. But in that, because it's not just gluten-free, it's dairy-free, it's cutting out some different inflammatory, like corn and some different things. And in fact, my husband gained weight going gluten-free. So when he said something about it, doesn't necessarily mean that you'll lose weight, especially if you are someone who's malnutritioned. But the one thing he said that I wanted to emphasize was the fact that gluten-free products are a lot more available than we once had, even at Aldi, like, we have 3 kids. So, I'm an Aldi shopper, and Aldi has a great gluten-free, section and options. And most of your like Kroger and Ingles and Food City now have a lot of good gluten-free options. In some way, it became kind of a fad, a fad thing to do. It was a healthy thing to do. But really and truly, the more we kind of discover about gluten, the better it would be from an inflammation standpoint, not just with Crohn's or bowel diseases. I've had patients and family members who had severe gout, arthritis, that when they cut out those inflammatory foods, specifically went gluten-free, they were able to move again, and their joints weren't stiff, and the inflammation in their body reduced dramatically.
Yeah, the inflammation part was something that Dr. Rogers really emphasized. Not only inflammation in your joints, but also inflammation in your in your brain.
Yes.
Which I find really interesting as far as just thinking clearly, and in more extreme cases with dementia and Alzheimer's. So it's fascinating to me the way that over time we've just drowned out all the nutrients in grains and in wheat, and a lot of that is because of just I guess the industrialization of society, and maybe we're still of the mindset that things that were good for us 100 years ago are still good for us. Fran, is that something that you think about in terms of when you're picking your foods, or what we've
they do say that the wheat has changed, and there's the older wheat was I don't know how I'm saying it correctly. It's like Einhorn or Einkorn. You can find products in the market now that have that type of wheat. But when you're talking about the neuroinflammation, and you go through wheat belly and grain brain, they're basically saying that all the grains cause some level of inflammation, but wheat is the one that is the worst.
Interesting.
So in this book, Grain Brain, by the neurologist, what's his name, Perlmutter, he says that all the grains cause problems. So he really wants you on a grain-free diet.
What would a grain-free diet consist of? Like, I wouldn't even know.
Oh,
it's no bread?
Very similar to like no bread. It's very similar to like the keto diet. It's really not that hard. It's just a change. You would eat things like meat and vegetables. Like, so your typical dinner could be a piece of salmon, and then you could have a salad and broccoli, and you can fill a plate with that and be plenty full. You don't always need to have bread just because it's something that we're used to.
I could argue that, Fran, but we don't have time to do that today. But no, keep going, because you're exactly right. And, and it's important for the people listening that, there are ways, just like Amber was saying with all the gluten-free options. Would gluten-free options be grain-free as well? Are they synonymous?
Not necessarily, because sometimes it's a different type of, it may not be wheat flour, but like it might be, well, actually, is rice flour or corn flour? I guess it wouldn't be allowed. Fran, is that rice a grain?
They're grains.
Yes.
They're grains. So, now there's some other products out there now, like a cassava flour that they're starting to use. There's a brand called Seat, Siete, and it has a lot of grain-free products that it's coming out with. It even has chips and stuff that you can find at the various health food sections. But most of the stuff I read says if you're going to go gluten-free, the best way to do it is with products that are naturally gluten-free, so that you're not eating all these processed things that they put together and removed gluten. You're much better off just going with whole foods, vegetables. I mean, a gluten-free diet, you can have your fruit, you can have your vegetables, you can have your protein. You're just eliminating the bread products and the carbs, which cause problems also. So it's I don't know, it's really a win-win if you just try it for 30 days.
If you try gluten-free or grain-free, Fran?
Both. I mean, gluten-free and grain-free, you'll lose weight and you'll feel better. And if if you do go gluten-free and you don't feel better, then you kind of know, well, maybe you're just one of those lucky individuals that's not affected.
Well,
but then the thing I struggle with is with kids. I mean, my daughter
It's
is
hard to
PB&J,
feed kids
a
without gluten.
PB&J kind of girl. And I've always tried to do moderation because, I had friends who had very restricted diets, like very, nothing processed. And then they came over to my house and ate the entire box of Oreos. And so I'm just trying to figure out what's the balance where we celebrate things, we have things, but we don't, it's a struggle, especially when you think about going gluten-free with a 3-year-old who eats chicken nuggets almost every day.
And I would say we're talking more about people who have, rather than kids, people who have medical challenges.
True. Yes.
If you're waking up every morning and everything hurts, right? Your joints ache, then why not give this a try?
Yes.
If your 5-year-old's running around and he's perfectly happy and healthy, I don't think you need to suddenly just say, let's eliminate gluten. No more gluten for you.
That's right. Oh, I appreciate that.
But if you have a challenge, this might be an answer. And one of the books I read that's called It Starts With Food, it has a line in there that I just always remember. It just stuck out to me. It says, changing your diet really isn't that hard, but having your leg cut off because you have diabetes, that's hard. So let's really think about what is truly hard. Giving up some things that you like to eat.
Yes.
Not that hard. You can find substitutes. But
I think
severe health problems are really hard.
I think that's well said, from both of you, because I think, there is definitely a balance. And, because I remember, some friends for me growing up where, there was nothing allowed in their house. And as soon as they get to one of their friends' houses, they just, it's like a kid in a candy store, no pun intended. So it's really interesting. I think, from a raising kids standpoint to, as you're getting older and things are becoming more and more important. So it's a very interesting conversation. And, something that stood out to me was his take on sourdough bread. Speaking of bread, and I've convinced myself, and there you go. Fran is showing us a take and bake. In terms of, when I do eat a sandwich or a bagel, I'm looking for a sourdough bagel or a sourdough piece of toast. Do you guys like, obviously, Fran, you do. What's your take on sourdough versus, the idea of being grain-free and gluten-free?
I just find the sourdough doesn't, if you're somebody who has like irritable bowel problems, it seems to me if I like have a piece of pizza, I'll notice it. I'll have stomach issues. But if I eat this particular brand of organic sourdough bread, I'm fine. It doesn't mean that I don't crave bread like that. I mean, this bread is delicious. I try to avoid it because it's one of those things that if I have one slice, I really want to have like 5. Because it's just so good.
Amber, what about you? In terms of
sourdough is Scott's favorite bread. It's definitely a staple in our home, especially for him. And then, he'll give me a few slices every now and then. But yeah, I like sourdough bread.
Are there good sourdough pizza places up in the Tri-Cities? Out of curiosity.
Not
are there some in Knoxville?
There are some there's one in Knoxville that I know of that does sourdough pizza, and it's amazing. There's also a bagel place. I have to give them a shout out. Payson Bagels, because I go there every morning, I feel like. But sourdough bagels, and it makes me happy, and also makes me feel not so bad about eating bagels.
Very good, Ben.
Yeah,
very good.
Thank you. I needed some affirmation. I needed you guys to say, "Hey, Ben, it's okay. You can have your
bagel.
You can have your sourdough
as long as you take Gluten Shield."
That's right. And that was the next thing I was going to say. Again, I feel like this is for the 4th week in a row here that he's mentioned Gluten Shield, and I, for one, I don't know about you guys, but I've started taking it, since we've been doing these shows, and I feel like he mentions it all the time. And I've gotten in the habit. I've had some stomach issues in the past, and I feel great. The thing that got me was we had a conversation on one of the Dictations episodes, and he said that a probiotic was also for your immune system in the sense that it helps you absorb nutrients better. That if your gut isn't working well, you don't absorb the nutrients that you're eating or the supplements you're taking, and that's what got me. Other than stomach problems, all that stuff, or like just regular bowel movements, all that stuff didn't get me the same way the immune system correlation did. Are you guys both on a probiotic?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that what got you guys? Was it that, or just, you've known about gut health forever, I feel like?
Dr. Rogers, I started on Theralac before Gluten Shield, and I'm just too afraid to switch because I love it so much, because it literally changed my life.
Well, there you go.
So, I just stayed on that one.
Are you on Gluten Shield, Fran?
No, I'm on products by Microbiome Labs.
Oh, nice. You've mentioned them to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been on a spore probiotic, and they have also a Gluten Shield type product called wheat blocker. And so I take that, and it's very similar. It has pretty much the same ingredients that Gluten Shield has.
Can you explain, just because I don't know, you said spore, can you explain what?
Spore probiotics.
Yeah, what is that?
So they're soil-based probiotics, and they can live without being refrigerated, and they survive the harsh environment and the acidic environment of the stomach and through the intestines. Some of the probiotics that are out there do not survive in the gut. So I had found this brand because it had been studied, and it doesn't require refrigeration, and it has a really long shelf life. I originally got involved with it because you can take it on vacation.
Is there,
when you have something that needs to be refrigerated,
sure,
and you're on an airplane, and it's a pain.
Is there anything on the ingredients of a probiotic, Fran, that you think people need to look at and make sure that that's on there in order, before they purchase a probiotic? Because I feel like this is one you could screw up with.
I think they really need to do some research, and I'm not going to put down any companies. That's not right, but you need to do your research and make sure you're on a quality product. And I would say it should be studied and tested.
Studied and tested. And is there any way of telling of whether or not the probiotics can live in your gut? Is there a name for that or something? Or is that the spore thing that you're talking about?
All kinds of companies make all kinds of claims. I've read all kinds of stuff that says there's, this company's probiotic doesn't work. It's, I'm sure the major ones that are out there that are on the market, the ones they sell at CVS that I've heard, like Align, there's a whole bunch of them out there. I would think they would have to have been tested.
And
if they weren't working for people, I would think the product would kind of disappear.
Well, and the other thing, and this is something that Dr. Rogers mentioned in this note, is listen to your gut. And if you can tell, and Amber, it sounded like when you got on Theralac,
she
could
found
tell
something that works for her.
This is
exactly. That's what I was going to say to Fran. If you whatever product it is, whether it's been tested or not, I mean, if you don't respond well to it or have a reaction to it, then there's other options that you can try. You shouldn't just give up on one. Probiotics are important.
Well, guys, let's do one final thought from each of you, and then we're gonna sign off here because I know we got busy days ahead. Fran, what was your big take from this week's Dictation episode?
If you're struggling with your weight or health issues, look to your diet and see if possibly eliminating two of the ones that Dr. Rogers really is against, which are corn and wheat, from your diet. Give it a trial, do it for 30 days and see if your health improves.
Love it. Amber?
And then go from there, and we can help you to get better.
Yes.
Love it.
Absolutely. My biggest, from a personal note, I called my husband because we'd kind of gotten slack. He was very faithful to gluten-free. And then I called him and I was like, from an inflammation standpoint, I think that really is what kind of stuck out in my mind. That it's something that I think, especially he needs to, I need to support him in just really trying to do a better job of going gluten-free to kind of get that inflammation under control.
Yeah, and I think I'm with both of you in the sense that this is one thing that we really do have control over. There is some black and white here, and if there's anything that you can cut out. This seems to be one of them that is super helpful for a lot of people. And Fran did a great job of mentioning some ways that you can go gluten-free. Guys, thank you so much for your time today. As always, I appreciate it, and I cannot wait to get back on the Zoom call, on the podcast with everyone next week, including you two. So guys, thank you. To the listeners out there, thank you for spending your day with us, for spending these 15 to 20 minutes every week. It means a lot to us, and hopefully we're going to continue to bring value to y'all in your health and wellness journey. Guys, thank you. We are signing off. This is the Mid-Level Show.